Good evening. On Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan tonight, a special guest, the head of the athletic performance, the swire-shipping Fijian Drua, Nacanieli Cawanibuka, a name very familiar with people who follow rugby and who know that a lot has to be done in the strength and conditioning area to ensure players are all set before they take the field. A lot of work has to be done off the field before they run on the field, and the importance of that. He's a busy man, very hard to get. We've managed to get him thanks to the game, first game here, swire shipping Fijian Drua playing the Highlanders at the ANZ Stadium in Suva. Master Nada, thank you very much for taking out some time from a busy schedule to talk to our viewers and listeners.
Vinaka Vijay, and Bulu Vinaka everyone. It's great to be back home again after many months, I guess, of Ireland with the team, but also Bulu to all the viewers and listeners, and it's a great opportunity. I'm actually humbled to be called to the studio to come and share knowledge today.
Nada, first of all, a lot of people wouldn't know who is Nada Cawanibuka. A lot of people definitely follow your tweets very closely, trying to find out what's going on in the team that you're involved in as you share some knowledge, or even when you share some knowledge about a player that you have discovered and they have grown to be a star eventually. So let's talk about Nada Cawanibuka first. Your beginnings, where you grew up, what school you went to, and your leading towards the sport of rugby eventually.
Well, firstly, I'm from Tabuki village in Kantabu, and my koronivasu is Ekumbu Watulele Nanronga. And I went to Stella Maris Primary School, did a bit of track and field there as an athlete back in the day. Then went to Maris Brothers High School, where I started my rugby when I was 15, 16 years old. That really kicked off the journey for me. What inspired me back in those years, 89, 90, 91, 92, was really the Hong Kong three-pit. And I always share this with my good friend and family friend, Wasile Serevi, that they were playing in Hong Kong back in those years, and I was probably one of the many hundreds or thousands of young boys who were inspired by their journey. That's really what inspired me to follow rugby, but also, following probably the footsteps of my dad, who is, he went through track and field and rugby as well. Probably didn't play national level, but he influenced a lot of myself and my siblings to enjoy and love sports. That's a big part of our family. So I started from a very young age. Spent about 17 years at Fiji College of Advanced Education, where the old man was working, and my dad was principal of that college for quite a while. And we had obviously the Nacanieli Rugby Club ground, where you had some of Fiji's greatest players. They run on that field. So as a young 8-year-old boy, I sat there on the side of the field watching the great Rauluni brothers. Serevi comes on, Vunimpaka, and Dobi Verata. That for me was really my formative years to come on this journey of rugby. And, surrounded by facilities there at Nacanieli. And, we're a good club side with Nacanieli as well. Well, Maris really went through age group, and then I didn't make the Fiji national under-19 team back in the day. But the year after, when I was at uni, then was quite honored to be selected into the Fiji under-21s, which I played for 3 years, 97, 98, 99. Played with some real good players who captained Fiji, the great Seru Rambeni, the late Seru Rambeni, Misinaevo, Bill Ngandolo, Plus Satala, to name a few. That was really my pathway before I made it into the super team for the provincial championship here in Fiji, and made it into Fiji Sevens. Tried my hardest to follow my other brothers into the Flying Fijians, fell short with knee, ankle, and neck injury. And, because my dad was obviously a former coach for 3 national sports, track and field, volleyball, and sevens rugby. And, he did his sports science degrees up in India, and physical education. That kind of, because our house was probably littered with all this material knowledge. I started reading very young, and I didn't really know that this was really the pathway. It's going to help me through life after rugby, really, get a career in it, but also to help Fiji, not only in rugby, but also help out with other sports. And that is the beauty of it. And I was quite unconscious to the path I was treading until now, and I realized. And 2001 to 2005, I became a school teacher at Maris Brothers High School, where I coached the first 15 rugby team. That had people like obviously Gabi Lobambalabu, some other really good players that came through, and then coached Fiji under 18 rugby, 15s, and the sevens team. So the Fiji sevens under 18 squad that I was quite privileged to be the head coach of back in 2004. We went down to Melbourne, Bendigo, Commonwealth Youth Games. We won bronze, lost in the last play to Australia. We had Sisawanga as captain, Napoleon Nalanga, the late Sireli Temo, Manu Nawalu, Rambo Nangida Sailosi. There were some real good players. So that was really my pathway. And then in 2006, I jumped into sports science because I had been chasing that for a long time. Finally, it was offered at USP, so I just thought, can't probably go overseas, just do it here locally. And the following year, I was still trying to get myself back into Colonial Cup. Another big injury around my neck. That was my last one. And then I said, probably this is not for me. And then that year also, I was quite honored to be approached by Fiji Rugby Union High Performance to help out with the Flying Fijians rugby team to the 2007 World Cup. That really, Vijay, was the start of my career in strength and conditioning. And the rest is history now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, those are good times. You talked about some milestones there, but you achieved a lot after that even. 2007 World Cup, definitely a memorable one, that quarterfinal against South Africa, where we still remember the South African team under the posts when they really look worried that Fiji may win that game.
I remember very vividly standing on the 22-meter line, looking at John Smith, Brian Habana, Matfield, all the greats, they were there under the post. I was just looking at them, and I remember the week before, because we had Wales up in Nantes. That was surreal. That was just unbelievable, like the actual experience, But the week before actually set us up for that, because, we lost to Australia and the Wallabies in Montpellier. Then that week leading up to the Wales week, training just bust the roof. The boys were in a different space altogether. I remember that jersey presentation the night before. We gave out the jerseys. Talatala Rinakama, shared some powerful words to the boys. At the end of that, I remember Nicky had tears in his eyes. Sisa Kwamembole told me, Master, if we are to play now, we are ready. But the game was 24 hours later, obviously. But when the boys came onto the field that day, I remember the look on their face when they came out the tunnel, walking through, and then they parade for the national anthem. The look on their face that day was just totally different. And I did about 50 test matches with the Flying Fijians as head of performance, and 2 Rugby World Cups. And I always say this to Serama Mbai and a few other legends of the Flying Fijians. I never saw that again. And I hope we can see that more often. But just the look on their faces, just the focus the boys had going into that game. The first 40 minutes, we blew Wales off the park. They didn't know what hit them. We were ahead, I remember, 26 points to 7 or something. Yeah. But it was just Fiji fire all the way. They were chasing shadows. That's a few years ago now.
Yeah, but as you said that we need to continue to nurture that. And the nurturing, of course, is important. At times, it's been said that we do not get that many opportunities between the Rugby World Cup 4-year cycles. Let's talk about that, first of all, with the Fijian Drua setup, where now, after many years of trying, the Swire shipping Fijian Drua is finally in the Super Rugby Pacific competition. How do you think this will change the 15s game, knowing that we now, in the competition, playing against the best, at least in the Southern Hemisphere?
Well, you know what? We've been chasing the game changer for over 100 years. It's 26 years of professional rugby now, since 1996. It's here. And I think the whole of Fiji, the whole world have seen in 8 weeks where Fiji has reached in terms of pro rugby. Many players have had to go overseas to look for that opportunity. It's now with us on island. And, we have about, 70-80% of the team made up of players who've graduated through age group rugby, school rugby, our pathway programs in Fiji, and also Skipper Cup, Fair Brother. And they The bulk of the team is made up of those players. And in the first 8 weeks of competition, and now we've played, all the Australian franchise teams. And last Saturday, the boys had the opportunity to play the current best in Super Rugby Pacifica, the Auckland Blues, which was heavily loaded with All Blacks. And if you count the number of test caps in that side alone, and the number of Super Rugby caps, you're looking into a few hundreds, And you look at our boys, probably the most number of games Super they played under their belt, that lineup that played on Saturday, probably six games of Super, which is, less than 500 minutes of rugby at that level. And see how the boys performed. That should really give confidence and reassurance that we're on this path. We've done a lot of hard work to get here, but there's going to be more work that's required in order to level up. Now, there's something that's really special, unique about Fiji, is our adaptation. Our adaptation physically is very quick because of the genetic makeup of our being, because of what the boys bring with them from a young age. We probably don't have a real formalized long-term athlete development program in Fiji. And I say that meaning our primary school, high school education, where they are put through a proper training program, monitoring, supervision, nutrition, disciplines around performance and preparation. But, we still have something in place with all our school programs. But it can be done way better. But what we've done is, they've come now to the national level where we've tried to level up very quickly by adjusting the big rocks. And the big rocks of performance, nutrition, which heavily influences physical conditioning, mindset, and coaching, and just a holistic development around the athlete. Because the athlete is what we put on the field, athlete and the player. The person is the holistic part, which we have a lot of work to do off the field. That's the unseen. So the product is really what runs onto that 100 by 70 meter field for 80 minutes on the weekend. But there's a whole lot more that we're trying to fill in the gaps. Because, the boys bring a lot of uniqueness and strength about them, but there's still a lot of education and learning around how it is to become a full-time professional. The talent is there, but it's these big rocks that needs to be there to support the talent for longevity. Look at Sarah Mambai, he finished games at 36, I think. Selesere finished at 40. Cyril Mbombo finished at 41, 42. And, Brad Thorne, you look at Rich Moko. Why did they last for so long? It's because they had all those unseen big rocks taken care of off the field. The wider public just see what happens on the screen. So people like myself and other resource personnel within the team, it's our job to make sure that all these pieces are put in place to help support the player. Because at the end of the day, when you look at high performance sport, whether it be rugby, athletics or basketball, soccer, whatever it is, it's coach driven, but also athlete centered. And when you talk about athlete centered, you talk about the welfare of the athlete, how we prepare them physically, putting resources around them so that they are ready to perform. Not only that, we're actually going beyond now. And I think you would have seen there's a big focus now on life after rugby. So we're putting programs in place. With the Pacific Players Association is big on this, building like professional programs around the players. Because rugby is only a very small part of their lives. But they need to build stuff around that because at the end of it, there's still a life journey.
Now, we'll talk about 15s and the holistic development, but a lot was also done for 7s with your involvement in it. And of course, when we were going for our first Olympic gold medal win in Rio, a lot of stories came out about, firstly, Ben Ryan shared this about the players even being dehydrated and the culture of making sure, getting the boo and ensuring that there's a duty roster there to get that going, to get people rehydrated and ensure that they are going at their full peak performance. What were some of the things that really needed to be done? Because you definitely can get raw talent, and as you said, to have that holistic development is to take it to another level.
Yeah. That's a good question, and it's good just to revisit and reminisce, because really what we did back in, obviously we won the World Series 2014, 2015, and Ben came in 2013, right? That first year when he was with us, we came third behind New Zealand and South Africa. Now, when we came back at the end of that season, we reflected and reviewed what the program looked like. And for me, my initial was this, as I just shared with Ben back then. Most of these players have never had a preseason. They've never had an off-season program where they've done proper gym work. Now, when you look at athletic performance, the foundation, the bedrock of all athletic performance is strength. Our boys have never been in a proper, regimented, programmed strength program in off-season. So what we did at the back end of the 2015 season, leading into Olympic year, we got the boys for about 16 weeks locked in the gym. Sat with Ben, we look at the periodized program from, I think we started back in August. We tested the boys. And then we had August, September, October, about 3 months and half of November, about 16 weeks. And I said, we need these boys to be locked up in the gym. We're going to make them stronger first. We'll make them faster, and then we'll make them fitter later. Because these boys have never done this before. Because physiologically, the body reacts that way. And what we did a block of 6 weeks, a block of 6 weeks, and a block of 4 weeks. And all we did was lock them up in the gym, and they worked hard for about 2 hours in the gym. 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, day off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It was hard, it was tough. Some people think you go into the gym and it's, you can, 2 hours, you slogging it out. And we had the 3 centers, Suva, Singatoka, Nandi. By the end of that period, we tested them for speed, they were faster. I tested them for their body fat with skin folds. They actually lost millimeters of body fat. So what we did was made them stronger. We burned calories, we stripped off a bit of body fat. But now they were bigger, stronger, they were faster. Not necessarily fitter. But these were a special breed of talented footballers. So we were not too concerned about it because we were going to strip them back as the season progressed. And then as we prepared for 2016 Rio, they were going to go through the hardest ever conditioning program in their lives. So that's how we programmed it. You would have seen if you go back to the 2016 World Series, the boys were actually much bigger. The final 5-6 weeks we had at Uprising before we left for Rio, it's probably some of the hardest conditioning that Fijian players have ever done. In terms of dehydration training, as you mentioned, we started that in November, December period of 2015. We did that for the first time before Dubai. We call it desert prep. So there's some research around it where you train the body in a dehydrated state. You have to be careful for that because you can actually break players down through injury. We had to make sure that they were hyper-hydrated before the sessions. So they actually had to drink lots of water. In the session, there's no water before and 30 minutes after. And then you take the coconuts in. How the body reacts to that conditioning is, because it's harder to do, there's lesser water in the body, your heart actually has to work harder. So, because it has to pump out more blood under a dehydrated state. So, the adaptation that happens is you actually can improve cardiovascular fitness. Not only that, even more importantly, you actually become mentally tough. It was hard for the boys, especially sessions where, and they remember, sessions where they came to the field, there's no cones, there's no water, there's no even rugby balls. And they just said, oh boy, today is death day. So when they played, on the field, opposition was easy than what they faced in training. We trained 50% harder than the actual game itself. The sand dune sessions is a big testament for that. And you survive that, you survive any tough competition. Yeah, because the biggest battle happens up here, especially in dark moments in the game. And, you have to defend with, like, say, 6 men in your 22 or in your half for about 2 minutes with 1 man in the bin. These are things you have to prepare for because the game is chaotic. If you prepare for extreme chaos, you come in the game and the game is not that chaotic. You actually, over-prepared for whatever scenario is thrown your way.
Well, mindsets. Sometimes, the mindset can only take you so far, and you need that mental grooming as well to ensure you're able to adapt in different situations, even on the field. How do you deal with that?
Well, a lot of the mindset and a lot of the togetherness, because the important thing is team bonding as well. You've got different characters in the team. What binds them together is real tough training. Eddie Jones said this a few years ago. For a team to actually gel well, they have to go into the dark room together. So that starts in training. And I've worked with Fijian teams for about 20 years now. The best Fijian teams are the teams who have been through the toughest training and toughest experiences. And you look at Winston, you look at all those things that happened back then. Last year's Olympic team, like 8 weeks here on island without seeing your family, and then another 8 weeks on tour. That built resilience. There's resilience, there's a level of resilience you can train for, physiologically, physically, but there's a level of resilience that needs to be developed in other areas. And that's what is built, and that's what Fijian athletes thrive on. It's uncoachable.
Talking about Rio, of course, winning that ultimate, the first ever sevens competition Olympic gold medal, historic moment in Rio, and then Ben Ryan announcing that he will be leaving. Of course, everyone was wondering what will happen next. And then when you win one, you know you have to defend it later. And we knew that 4 years later, 2020 was the year already announced as the Olympics to be held in Tokyo. And then as preparations, definitely, if you can talk about the journey from 2016 onwards, a different journey with a different coach, and you being in that setup again, had to rebuild the team because a lot of players left, and a new team had to be taken to Tokyo. And of course, after that, in the midst of all of that, then COVID hit.
Yeah. Oh, it's
What a game changer.
it's been a ride, hasn't it? So 2016, when Ben left, I was asked to take the team to be head coach. So it was an interesting seat to be in. Probably one of the hottest seats in country. I was head coach for Fiji Sevens for a few months before Gareth came in. So we did Oceania, did Dubai, and Cape Town Sevens. So I was kind of like the plug that was in there just to help the transition. We had a few senior players from the remaining players from the Olympic, which is important for transition and progression. So I was kind of like in that space for that year. So 2016-17, I think we reached 4 grand finals on the World Series, which is not bad. But then we won only one tournament, probably the most important one, Hong Kong Sevens 2017. I tell you this, just while we're there, that for me, in the 5 year in a row, was the greatest Hong Kong victory. That's just my personal take. I never get tired watching that final. We can talk about that later. But yeah, that was a tough space to be in because we had to perform, and the reputation of being gold medalists was right up there. Expectation was right up there. But the reality was different. The reality was that we've got a new coach coming in, we've got some new players, we've got players who came through Olympics. But listen, when you look at Olympic history, a lot of those Olympians who win gold medals, they fall off a cliff soon after that, because you're on such a big high. If you don't have resources around you to help you mentally, and all this kind of thing, you fall off a cliff. That's what happened. And we had, some of the Fiji's best, Oscar, we had Chasa, we had all those boys, Sami Viriviri, but they were tired. They tried their best. These boys are warriors, they are fighters, but mentally, physically, they were just hanging in there. We managed to finish the series. I think we dropped the last tournament in London. That's where it really sank in that we reached, like, I think we lost out in the pool stages, went to the bowl. That was really, at the end of that tournament, Gareth and I sat down and we said, right, okay, this is what we're going to do. The transition phase is finished. We have to now set up a new program for Tokyo 2020. Got in new players, and then again we rebuilt. So the 2017-18 year, if you remember, we lost out in the last tournament. We could have won the series that year. Lost out to England in the quarters, last play. But that was the journey. You lose some, you win some. But we won 5 tournaments that year. No other team did that. We missed out, and that still pains my heart to this day. Even though I moved on. Commonwealth Games final against New Zealand and the World Cup in San Francisco. Those are 2 tournaments we let go. We made some minor mistakes within the team camp in terms of, loading or selection or preparation. Everything wasn't right. And, those 2 learnings from the Commonwealth Games final to New Zealand. And we lost to the same team in SFO. When we were about to play them at the Olympic final last year in Tokyo, when we were prepping here, so Coach Brad Harris and Gareth sat down and they came up with a chaotic scenario, which is a New Zealand attack against us in Cape Town 2019. That was the defense model that we lived off, and we worked off that script. So when we played New Zealand in the Tokyo final, we played them for 8 weeks at an empty ANZ stadium. We battle prepped here for 2 months. No one saw us. We only had our drone there and God watching, and we prepped for South Africa, we prepped for New Zealand, because we said in our hearts, we will not fall to NZ again, the same way we did in Gold Coast and SFO. Still pained us. Whenever the boys started to put their foot off the pedal, I kept reminding them, remember Gold Coast, remember SFO. And we almost let go of that opportunity because of the pressure of COVID. But when they played New Zealand in that final, the boys were ready. And the rest is history. And everyone saw the display that they did. And I only wish if that game went for 10 minutes, would have been a spectacle,
You talked about Hong Kong and how that fifth one was quite special. Hong Kong seems to be the one that the players, a lot of people say that's where, because it all ends up with Sokonpo Stadium and Happy Valley, and the connection from back in the day. You even spoke about growing up and watching the icons back in the day and wanting to be part of rugby. Is there something special in the minds of the players when you are in camp, when you come into Hong Kong? That was something before maybe the Olympics, that Hong Kong was the one that they had to win?
Yeah, I think Hong Kong brings a whole different energy out of the boys. There's a strong history with Hong Kong. Our seventh forefathers laid the platform from 1977. I mean, I was born in that year. And some of them are no more, probably, but their footprints is what these young fellas emulate. In my time with Fiji Sevens, 2008 was my first experience there with the team. We lost 34-0 to the All Blacks in the semis. That for me was Hong Kong Darkest Day. 2010 we lost in the semis again to New Zealand. And then 2015 right through to 2019, the game changed. Being with the team that time, we made sure the players were fit. Now, I mentioned 2017. Before we left for the tournament, we yo-yo tested the boys. Each tournament we yo-yo test the boys, right? We want to make sure that the fuel tank is ready. That year, 2017, that team that played in Hong Kong averaged level 21 on the yo-yo test. It was fitter than the Rio team. And 2019 was probably the youngest ever Fiji Sevens team to Hong Kong. Being in charge of the team all those many years, I trained them harder than ever before. Aminiasi Timamba almost left camp. He was broken. He said to me, Master, I almost ran away. I was this close, because we took them through the paces. Really tough training. I mean, Serevi was watching from the stands. He said, boy, I don't know how these players are able to survive that kind of... And no one sees that. But everyone saw the final. I've always had this thing about it is, if you're younger, you have to be fitter than the most experienced players in the world. They did that job. We had Kenya first, and we had Australia, we had New Zealand. That was the pool of death. And I think most people wrote the team off. We lost Kylie Nasoko, lost a few other key players. Melinda Nalangi, first ever Hong Kong. Botitu, first ever. Tuimamba, first ever. But they all made the dream team at the end of that tournament. Why? It comes back to preparation. It comes back to team culture. It comes back to the expectations we put on them. But a big rock is you have to be physically fit to do the job on the field. Not only once, but repeatedly, And currently within Drua, that's the same story. It's not a 1-2 week and then 4 weeks off. With the 15s within Drua, you have to be ready for 16 weeks. Week in, week out, you have to learn to play with pain. Pain is your friend. You have to live with that pain and overcome it mentally.
We'll talk about the Drua shortly. I just wanted to ask you about the Tokyo Olympics. Of course, it wasn't held in 2020, got shifted to 2021, and it came at a time when COVID was at its peak. The country was hurting here. No doubt the team was in dire straits as far as the players could not go back home. Gareth has shared the stories about even the captain, Jerry Tuai, wanting to go out of camp and go and see his family. So definitely strained situation. How was the coaching team managing that, knowing that we had everything, as to use that word, chaotic? You were planning for chaotic situations on the field, but here you had a chaotic situation and no end to it before you even took the field.
100%. In such situations, sometimes when you look at it, put things into context, it is actually life and death. Because at that time, it was quite a sad time in Fiji. COVID has broken many families. And when that happens, that takes precedence over rugby, and Olympic Games. Because there's no Olympic Games, there's no gold medal that's more important than life. So this was it was a different kind of a challenge. So as a management group, it was really important that we stuck tight as a management group, that we were singing from the same song sheet, that we had to manage the players in a very different way, different to any other team. There's no other Fiji team in camp at that time but us, because everyone was at home. We had to stay positive ourselves. I'll be quite honest that I was quite challenged as well mentally. I wasn't able to cross over the bridge there to go to see my family. The players were pretty much in the same space. Gareth is a strong man, and he was tough and making sure that everything was, in place and everyone is keeping safe. We became a bit paranoid about it as well, and we was supposed to be anyway, in order to maintain the bubble. If that bubble was to break, there was no Olympic gold, finished. If one player or one official caught COVID, we were done, finished. And it's when I reflect now, man, that 8 weeks at St. John Hostel, we were in that camp, in that little space. We became claustrophobic. We began to sink into cabin fever, we call it, because you're in these walls, within the four walls. From there, ANZ Stadium, back. The gym, I had to build a marquee gym just down in the car park area. There's no Olympic team that prepared like that. They had all the state-of-the-art gymnasium around the world. And when I shared the gym space that we were working out of, people were like, "Ooh," their eyes popped. And but that's where resilience is built. As a coach, that's where creativity is challenged. How do you maintain focus? How do you maintain intent and purpose in order to be driven, to prepare to perform? And you got all these things around you with life and death. We still had to manage nutrition, recovery, sleep, helping the players cope with that pressure as well, because they're not allowed to go home and see family. They can't break that bubble. It was a tipping point, to be fair. But I just thank God that He helped us through that space. We had to make sure that we had programs in place to see that the players were engaged all the time. The idle mind is a devil's workshop, and we had to make sure that engagement was always there. But there was some real strong brotherhood created up in St. John Hostel that is hard to replicate. Yeah. And then, obviously went on to Townsville, went over to Japan. When we reached Japan, it was playtime. The boys just enjoyed themselves. Even though, we struggled a bit in the first two games, but hey, it was to be expected. We're playing against high-performance teams anyway. There's no walk in the park.
What were some of the motivating factors? And of course, the first two games worried the fans, and did it worry the coaching team? The first two games.
I think to say worry probably doesn't really apply to us. We expected that, but we were quite, probably, we reviewed the games after that. We're disappointed we didn't live up to our standards. It was a mindset thing. One thing the public needs to understand is, when you go into tournaments, the first two games, the opposition are fresh. They will come at you with fire. The first two games, or the third game even. When you go into day two, go into day three, the opposition start to weaken because they've been broken down by games. That's where Fiji begins to soar. The resilience of the Fijian athletic body, when it's trained properly, recovered properly, coached properly, day two, day three, and especially the last games of the tournament, that's when we are at this altitude and teams start to drop off. So we need to expect that the first couple of games in any international sevens tournament, expect close scores. If you come in and it's a big score against that opposition, it's because that opposition was mentally switched off. They just lost the battle mentally because they saw a Fiji team and they lost the fight mentally. That doesn't always happen. I remember Dubai 2015, right? We played Canada in the first game. 65 points to 7 or 10. We scored 12 tries, I think, and 12 different people scored. The second game against Japan, Saverawada scored in the last minute. they could have beaten us. So that's a clear picture there of what can happen. You know, you look at Ireland, Fiji in Singapore. We lost to them in the first game. I wasn't surprised when I saw that because Ireland would have been ready mentally, physically. But that's just how the sevens goes.
Yeah, well, that's right what you've said about fans. And right now, let's talk about the Swire Shipping Fijian Drua. You are the head of athletic performance. We've got this dream now, which we are witnessing being accomplished with our team now based in Australia, thanks to support from the Australian government as well, based at Lennox Head. You've had your own challenges there of staying there for 6 months and building on the team and playing the first few games at a home that is not your home, but you're having your home games there. How's it been?
I think there's been a lot of learnings in this foundation year. It's hard mentally to be away from family for that long. Some of the boys have young children, you know, and we still have to build a culture. We still have to make sure that our focus and our goals are being met gradually, progressively. It's been an enjoyable experience. One thing it has allowed us to do is to really focus on preparation and focus on transformation. The first 2 months, November, December last year, some of the boys entered pro rugby for the very first time. Now they're in an environment where they understand sleep is important, nutrition, putting the right food on the plate, the right portions, the timing of that food intake, hard training, the conditioning that they had to do, real solid work, doing VO2 grids, doing mass running, doing conditioning games, working hard on the anchors, back at Lennox, doing 6 days a week of training. There were weeks where we covered 42,000 meters, 42 Ks in a week. That's massive from a rugby perspective. Boys had to drop body fat. Last year, when we broke off for summer break in second week of December, the collective body fat that was lost through the team was almost 115 kilograms. That's literally removing a human being from the team. There was all accumulated body fat shared across the 42-man squad. That came through training, recovery, nutrition, discipline, and just building this team environment. That was the foundation, really, because players rocked up, some of them in real poor state. So we had to transform their bodies. So it's a 1, 2, 3 year progress. It won't just happen overnight. We'll grow into this program and grow into the competition. But it's been tough. It's hard for the boys. Pro rugby is not easy. Waking up each morning and you have to rock up to work, get ready, and sometimes they finish work at like 10 p.m. in the evening, whether it be massage or recovery. On a Friday night, the last thing you want to do is do a yoga session, isn't it? Friday evenings for anyone, it's happy hour in the evening. They have to come to the gym and do 1 hour of solid yoga every week. And we do that twice a week, Wednesday in the evening and Friday. Why? Because we want to improve mobility. We want to make these Fijian rugby players the best athletes they can be, so that they can have efficient systems in their body. With less energy, they can produce more, but also protect themselves from injury. Why? So that they can play the best they can put food on the table, they can help their family, feed their family, and also their village and life after rugby. That's why this is happening. So last Saturday, they played against New Zealand's best team, the Auckland Blues. And the Blues, you look at that team and that's just All Blacks running onto the field. Some of the world's best players. So Borden Barrett comes up and speaks to Mickey and I at the end of the game and said, we were expecting that, but not at that level. But this team is only 6 months old. So that's exciting as a Fijian. I hope that, players who are in the schoolboy pathway program at the moment, those who are in Skipper Cup, they can see that, wow, there's an opportunity here. And I think families on island, players on island are seeing these Drua boys come back and they just see the physical shape of them. Some of them are, looking at the boys, "Ooh, man, you look different." And it's good because that's why this week is such a blessing that all our players on island can see what these boys look like now, because that's the beginning of change. Because what we've always done have not won us a Rugby World Cup 15s. It's won us Rugby 7s, but not Rugby World Cup 15s. So if that's the case, then we need to change what's happening in our 15s program. Body shape must change. Nutrition discipline must change. You can't, as a rugby player, if you want to aspire for national jersey, Flying Fijians or Super Rugby, you can't be drinking cover to 2 a.m. and then opening your dinner at 3 a.m. and then finishing that big rice and curry chicken and sleeping the whole day the next day. You're only going to accumulate fat. Your body's going to be in a poor shape. You can't play 80-minute footy.
Now, nutrition is a big one that sometimes a lot of players get wrong. How strict you have to be. Of course, it's as you said, it's a progressive stage, it's a development stage. People love their big chow that they have on Sundays and all these buffet of different dishes that people always enjoy in Fiji. We know that's known in big events, etc. How do you deal with that to ensure that you're keeping it on a strict diet?
I guess I'm a person the boys love to hate in the team. It's just because the strictness of the discipline of performance. Ben Ryan shared it in a very simple way. Have a colorful plate, back in the day. Having all your nutrition, your vegetables, your fruit, your salads, have your lean meat, your proteins. Very basic, but that's what you need. And taken in equal, in good portions and amount. And how much. If it's a heavy training day, you'll probably need a bit more carbs for your energy source. And you need that protein in order to protect muscle. At the end of that session, you need your protein as well to help repair muscle tissue and build muscle tissue and help support recovery and growth. And that's how the body improves itself. Hydration. We do hydration testing almost, on our big training days, making sure they are well hydrated because that prevents risk of injury, muscle tears and stuff like that. But there's a lot of learnings that needs to happen. We've hired a nutritionist who's come on board, teaching the boys on basics of nutrition, the different macronutrients in foods, your proteins, your fats, and your carbohydrates, the good fats, the bad fats, learning how to read a food chart on any given product that you go to the supermarket. You have to teach them within an exercise about that. It's only the start. A lot of learnings for the boys. We'll progress to, going shopping with them and helping them learn how to cook. This is something when we come back on island, the mums and dads in the homes, the wives and the family will need to know what to prepare, how to cook it, what to cook. We understand that we are Fijians. We need to enjoy our food. There's an enjoyment element that must not be neglected. And we have our cheat meals as well. Our first night here, I allowed the boys to have a Fijian dinner where you get your raw roast, get your beef, get your fish and your mbele, get a bit of ndalo in. That's for mind, for mindset as well. You can't be that hard taskmaster all the time. You can't do that because people break camp and go and eat the wrong food. Which happens sometimes. They're only human. But there's a level of discipline that must be established if we are to beat the Crusaders. If Fiji, Drua, God willing, in the near future, I don't know when that'll happen, but if we are to beat the Crusaders, if we are to beat the Auckland Blues, if we are to beat the Reds and the Brumbies, not once, not twice, but year in, year out, so that even when they enter the field, they say, oh, then Drua. For us to reach that point, just like how people view Fiji Sevens, all this must change. It doesn't change at Fiji and Drua level. It must change from primary school, high school, skipper, coming up. Because then, when that happens, then you can expect Flying Fijians to be the best 15th team in the world. Because, we have the potential to reach there. I don't know when, but we are on the right track. But just to take us back to about 9 years ago, I was in Cape Town and there was this guy who was like a high-performance anthropologist, he called himself. He wrote the book. If you have the chance, read this, The Gold Mine Effect. He talked about 6 high-performance centers in the world that won Olympic gold and world championships. The Jamaican sprinters, the Kenyan long-distance runners, Brazilian footballers, Korean golfers, lady golfers, top Russian tennis players. And he looked at these high-performance areas and he saw that quite basic, but they were the world's best. As he was speaking in this room at Stellenbosch, we were there for a 1-week course. My mind was in Fiji. This was 3 years before Rio. I came back to Fiji and I shared this at the FRU. And wherever I went doing coaching courses around Fiji, I shared that story. Because as he was talking, I was thinking, the gold mine is there in Watukola, but the real gold is running all over the parks, all over the beaches, all over the roundabouts in the different communities in Fiji. You got rugby players all over. But now it's not only boys, it's boys and girls. That's why it makes Fiji rugby really exciting.
You talked about the rocks and also holistic players. When it comes to this kind of competition at this level, how much work is going into the Fijian Drua players with that format in mind?
We've got coaching staff on board, some of the best coaches in the world. We've got a wonderful medical team as well, headed by the great William Kung. We've got, obviously a good group of conditioners as well. I work with, one of the world's best, Marty Hume at the moment. Help laying the platform and the plans and the programs. We've got nutritionists on board. We've got, Galen Osborne, who's helping with player development programs. We've got a young team we are grooming to become leaders. All of them to be leaders, in their own special right. These players are being paid full-time now. And, we're trying to reach into their families so that the families offers the support that they need to become better professionals. We've got the whole of Fiji supporting. We've got government support with funding. We've got the Australian government who've helped us as well. We've got New Zealand Rugby and Australian Rugby who have helped support this team. As the journey progresses, you'll start to see the outcome of all these contributions made by many people. And faith is a big one that helps fuel that. I think the players have the mindset now, they want to improve better. The training that they're doing, the culture that we're building. It's not an overnight thing. It'll take a few years to build. Hopefully we'll get there, Vijay. I might not be there to see the end, but it's still a journey.
Now, Naca, you become an integral part, no doubt, of any team that you're part of. You can see from the successes, the milestones achieved with the Fijian Drua. Let's go back to the game, and I'll talk about the Blues game, the champion side, of course, current champions of Super Rugby Pacific, and you taking them head on. And I think a lot of people saw the Drua lineup and said it's quite a fairly young side taking on this experienced Blues side. Your assessment on how the players prepped for it and afterwards how it has maybe boosted them that yes, we can do this?
I think it was really exciting for the young boys. These two players made their debut against the Blues, Nawai and Melituni. For the younger players, when they were named, they see the Auckland Blues and everyone just looks up to those players as the benchmark. And as an athlete, you want to measure yourself against the world's best. They had that opportunity in 80 minutes last Saturday. It was a wonderful opportunity. We didn't know what the outcome was going to be. No one knew. But at the end of the 80 minutes, they came off the field and they said, it's only our first game against a New Zealand franchise team, but it's given us, reassurance that the hard work that we are putting in, we are on the right track. We're not the finished article yet, but it gave them, really reinforced to them the systems we're trying to put in place and processes. They prepped really well last week. We try and prep the game really well in the week leading to the game. The coaches put in a lot of effort and emphasis on team review and also opposition preview to prepare the players. There's a lot of hard work, good work being done by the coaches in that space, just to prepare the players so that they are ready to level up. Now that game is done and dusted. There's a lot of learnings taken out, but now they look into the next one with great excitement and anticipation.
Let's talk about the next game. Of course, playing at home for the first time this Saturday at the ANZ Stadium in Suva against the Highlanders. A team all set to go, and of course talking to every player, they're saying they cannot wait to show themselves off against the Highlanders in front of the home crowd.
Yeah, there's great excitement, but we also need to bottle that excitement and channel it in a very positive way, in a controlled manner. Because the mind is such that if we don't control excitement, it goes overboard. Then you drop in your performance level. They trained well yesterday. Today is their recovery day, And there's a lot of interest, I'm sure, from the public. But these are young boys. These are young players who were not known 12 months ago. But now they have the opportunity to showcase their growth, their development in rugby this Saturday with their family against one of the Highlanders are a former Super Rugby champion. This is a seasoned professional team, 26 years. It's a great opportunity for our boys to measure themselves against one of New Zealand's best. And, we'll take each day as it comes. And that's something that we teach the players. Mindset is an important thing. We need to teach them how to think as well. We need to teach them on how to channel that energy. That's part of being a pro. So that when the moment comes, when the hour arrives, that's when they are ready to perform.
Your final message to the fans, because you've been a former coach, you've played for Fiji as well, and now, as I've said, being an integral part of the 2 sevens Olympic gold medal wins, and now with the Drua setup. What's your message to the fans? Some expectations are that they expect the Drua to be way up there. Some are saying measured expectation. Others are saying, well, it's just the first year. What's your message to the fans?
I'd say enjoy the moment. Enjoy the experience. We've never had this before. We've never had a Super Rugby Fijian team play in Fiji. Whatever the outcome is on Saturday, it'll take care of itself. But as a start, I think it's a time where Fiji can embrace. There's a lot of great things that has happened, a lot of good things that has happened, and a lot of people have put in immense amount of energy and time into this. Fiji Rugby Union, World Rugby, and everyone and the Fiji government who have all coaches, players, families, parents, siblings, villages. Let's go down to the grassroots level. This Saturday is your time to enjoy.
At Soya Shipping, Fijian Drua, head of athletic performance, Nacanieli, Cawanibuka, Vinava Levu for your time.
Thank you.